Welcome to my channel, where your adventure into the future starts right now. Step into a vibrant universe filled with groundbreaking technology, breathtaking alien landscapes, and exhilarating sci-fi narratives that challenge your imagination. From daring explorations of distant galaxies to haunting journeys through dystopian societies, we uncover the most captivating stories and innovative ideas that will shape the world of tomorrow. Subscribe today and join us on an incredible intergalactic voyage that promises to inspire and thrill. The battlefield was a place where the very air seemed to vibrate with the weight of battle. The sound of weapons clashing, energy weapons blasting, and the screams of soldiers filled the space. But there was one sound that, above all, sent shivers down the spines of the fiercest warriors in the galaxy. A sound so terrifying that it was spoken about only in whispers among the various alien species who had encountered it. That sound was the cracking of a human's knuckles. The alien species that had dominated the galaxy for centuries had never encountered a race like humanity. The Zorthans, the Throgs, the Vakarans, each of these species had conquered entire star systems and subjugated worlds far more advanced than humanity. To them, war was a game, a cold, calculated pursuit of dominance, an activity to be conducted with strategy and precision. Strength mattered, yes, but to the aliens, it was the intellectual game of war that made one superior. Weapons and tactics, not raw brutality, determined who would win. They had never encountered a species that mixed brutality with intelligence, a species that fought as if the very survival of their kind was at stake in every battle. Until they met the humans. For the first few decades, humanity was seen as an insignificant species in the eyes of the galactic empires. Earth was just another backwater planet, filled with primitive beings who had just learned to travel in space. The Throgs and the Zorthans had only taken a cursory glance at humanity, dismissing them as nothing more than another species on a small, inconsequential planet. They had no idea what they were about to face. But when the time came for the aliens to expand their territories, to take the resources of Earth to fuel their growing empires, they underestimated humanity. They launched an invasion with their usual superior firepower and advanced weaponry, expecting to crush the humans without so much as a second thought. They arrived with an almost casual arrogance, confident that their armies would sweep over Earth with little to no resistance. However, what they did not account for was the sheer unpredictability of humanity. The first battle was supposed to be a demonstration of power. The Throgs, a brutal and highly militarized species, known for their ferocity in battle, landed in the heart of Earth's most technologically advanced cities. Their war machines landed like thunder, their soldiers storming out with the kind of confidence that only centuries of unchallenged conquest could give. They quickly obliterated the initial lines of defense, smashing through human positions with ease. But then, something strange happened. As their forces pushed deeper into the city, they began encountering humans who were not retreating or surrendering, but fighting back with an intensity that the Throgs could not comprehend. The humans fought with a strange, almost chaotic energy. Their strategies were disorganized, their tactics seemingly haphazard. But there was a raw, untamed violence in their movements that was like nothing the Throgs had ever seen before. In the heat of battle, amid the fires of war, it became clear that humanity was not just fighting for survival. They were fighting for something deeper, something that could not be measured in strategies or calculations. It was a fight for their very identity, their will to live, and their desire to protect everything they held dear. And then, as the battle raged on, it happened. A human soldier, his back against the wall and surrounded by a dozen Throg warriors, did something that would forever change the course of the war. He cracked his knuckles. The sound echoed across the battlefield, a sharp, resounding crack that carried over the screams and explosions. It was a simple gesture, something done absent-mindedly before a fight. But to the Throgs, it was a sound like no other. They had been trained to fear the unexpected, to understand the power of psychological warfare. And in that one simple sound, they realized that they had made a grave mistake. The human was not just preparing for battle, he was embracing it. The Throgs, who had spent centuries conquering worlds with brute force, had never experienced anything like this. They had always been the ones to strike fear into the hearts of their enemies, the ones to break the spirits of lesser species with their might and aggression. But this human, standing alone, seemingly unafraid, had just done something that chilled them to their very core. It was as if that simple cracking of knuckles was the harbinger of something much worse to come. The Throgs hesitated, their bloodlust momentarily subdued by the sheer audacity of the human's actions. Before they could react, the human soldier lunged. With a speed and ferocity that defied belief, he tore through the nearest Throg with his bare hands. His movements were a blur, a chaotic symphony of violence that was both unpredictable and unstoppable. The Throgs, once confident in their strength, were now being overwhelmed by this singular human force, this unpredictable, raw power that surged through them like a hurricane. For the first time in their existence, the Throgs found themselves in retreat. The human did not relent. They had cracked their knuckles, and with that single, seemingly inconsequential action, they had signaled the beginning of a ferocious, unstoppable onslaught. It was as if the human was not just fighting for survival, but for something more, something that ran deeper than just the battle at hand. It was a fight for their dignity, their will to survive, and their undeniable right to exist. And so, the Throgs fled. They had never experienced such raw, untamed combat. They had never encountered a species that could embrace battle with such fervor. The human had cracked their knuckles, and in doing so, they had unleashed a force of nature that tore through them like a tornado. The word began to spread. The Throgs, once seen as the most feared warriors in the galaxy, spoke of that sound, the cracking of a human's knuckles. It became the subject of hushed conversations, of stories passed along the grapevine. The sound of a human preparing for battle was no longer just a physical gesture. It was a warning. It was a signal that the humans were ready for something far worse than mere battle. It was the sound of a species unchained, unafraid, and ready to fight for everything they held dear. The Throgs were not the only ones who learned to fear the sound of human knuckles cracking. As the war with the aliens raged on, other species began to take notice of the humans' strange, terrifying resolve. The Zorthans, a race of cold, calculating strategists who believed in the power of diplomacy and intellect, scoffed at the idea that such a simple gesture could strike fear into their hearts. They believed that victory could only be achieved through calculated maneuvers and the careful application of power. But when they encountered the humans on the battlefield, they quickly learned that their strategies meant little against the unpredictable chaos that humanity brought to the fight. The Zorthans, like the Throgs before them, found themselves face to face with the humans' ferocity. The cracking of knuckles once again became a symbol of something far darker, far more dangerous than they could have imagined. The Zorthans, who had once prided themselves on their ability to maintain control, were suddenly thrown into disarray by the sheer unpredictability of the humans. They could not plan, could not anticipate the next move, because the humans fought not just with intellect, but with a terrifying intensity that was almost beyond reason. For the Zorthans, it was the same story as the Throgs, A race they had once viewed as beneath them, a species they thought could be crushed easily, had turned the tide of the war through a simple, horrifying gesture, the cracking of their knuckles. It was as if the humans were not simply fighting with weapons and tactics, but with something primal, something that came from deep within their very souls. The Zorthens, masters of strategy and intellect, found themselves utterly outmatched by the raw force of humanity's will. The message had been clear from the beginning, but now it was understood by every alien species across the galaxy. The cracking of a human's knuckles was not just a sound of preparation for battle. It was a declaration of war, a signal that the humans had reached a point beyond which there was no return. They had embraced the fight with a terrifying savagery that no enemy had been prepared for. And when that sound was heard, it meant that the humans would stop at nothing to win. The Terran Empire, as it came to be known in the wake of humanity's rise, grew quickly, its military forces bolstered by the memory of that first sound, the sound of a human cracking their knuckles before the storm. It became a rallying cry, a symbol of the unyielding spirit of humanity. The aliens who had once thought to subjugate Earth and its people found themselves overwhelmed by the sheer will of the human race. No one could stop them now. The sound of a human cracking their knuckles was a sound that no one would ever forget. And so, the legend grew. The sound of a human cracking their knuckles became a symbol of something far greater than a battle. It was the sound of defiance, of a species that refused to bow, a species that could not be crushed. It was the sound of humanity embracing the fight, and when that sound was heard, the galaxy trembled in fear.